Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Star Midday News. And coming up in the bulletin, Ghana Police CDD Ghana condemns police's disregard for due process in the arrest and detention of Democracy Hub protesters as it expresses concern about the police's repeated use of excessive and illegal control tactics, especially when dealing with young protesters.
Handling and the brutality of citizens who were exercising those rights. We were also allowed and a refusal by the police to up to date still release the complete list of people or individuals who have been arrested during this protest.
We are also appealing that all who were unlawfully arrested be compensated according.
Meanwhile, Amnesty International Ghana is demanding compensation for all protesters who were unlawfully arrested during the Stop Galamsey protests and Reoccupy Jolobi House over the weekend.
We are also appealing that all who were unlawfully arrested be compensated according to the law of Ghana.
Also in the bulletin, Minority Caucus in Parliament accuses the Akufo-Addo-led government of compelling Ghana Gas Limited into signing an $800 million contract without Parliament's approval.
The minority has become aware of attempts by the Flagstaffer to compel the chief executive of the Ghana Gas Company Limited to sign a contract for gas processing at a whopping cost of more than $800 million.
And later on, the Institute for Energy Security describes resignation of ECG boss Dubik Mahama as unsurprising, accusing him of incompetence.
If it gets prolonged, we must expect widespread blackout and poor power supply.
Details of these stories and many more coming up shortly. Stay tuned in. Star News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, My Star Radio in the USA, also live on Facebook on Star 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Star 103.5 FM. Star News. Informed, in-depth, in touch. You're welcome once again to the Star Midday News on Star 103.5 FM. My name is Tettey. To the details of our stories now, and the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, has expressed strong disapproval of the recent actions taken by the Ghana Police Service in arresting and detaining over 40 citizens who were exercising their constitutional rights to protest. Now, over 50 youth who participated in the three-day protest by Democracy Hub against pressing national issues such as state capture, corruption, and illegal small-scale mining, commonly known as Galamsey, were arrested by the police. About 39 of them have been remanded into police and prison custody, while the others will know their fate today. Now, speaking to me earlier on the Morning Star, Senior Programs Officer, Human Rights and Social Inclusion at the CDD Ghana, Dr. Michael Augustus Akagbo, highlighted several violations, including the refusal to provide a list of those arrested, denial of access to legal counsel, and detaining individuals for more than 48 hours without court approval, which they argue violate the rights of the detained individuals as enshrined in the 1992 Constitution of Ghana.
Basically, issues that things that violate the rights and freedoms of individuals to exercise their civil and political rights to protest when they are not happy with how the state or the government is running the state. Or more importantly, we had issues with the manhandling and the brutality of citizens who were exercising those rights. We were also alarmed and a refusal by the police to up to date still release the complete list of people or individuals who have been arrested during this protest. We had also been taken aback by the denial of access to legal counsel. Counsels for arrested persons were running from police station to police station trying to find where their clients may be. And the police was not forthcoming with information.
You referenced that the refusal of the police to release the complete list of arrested individuals, also not giving the counsels of the suspect or the arrested protesters, giving them notification ahead of court and all that. The police's argument is that they did not in any way deny anybody access to counsel.
Well, if you have been following the narratives from counsels themselves in interviews with media houses, we have people where counsels who are saying they do not know where their clients are. They have gone to the police stations and they have been tossed all over the place trying to find where their clients could be. And additionally, even family members are unable to have access to these detained persons, which is a violation of their rights. These are very critical issues that we felt that needed to be looked at. Understand, the police is not there in any way to arrest people for going on demonstrations. The police can arrest during a demonstration if somebody commits a crime during the process of the demonstration. But the arrest of persons for just demonstrating is an unlawful act of the police.
Now, CDD also raised issues with the repeated use of excessive force by the police, especially towards young protesters, as it calls for immediate adherence to due processes and protection of citizens' rights.
When we look to see how the police engage with protesters, especially with young protesters, there seems to be a discriminatory component to that. It's like the police having the mindset to go out and discipline young people for daring to even go on protest. And that is becoming very worrying because it's becoming a very common feature of how our police are dealing with young people. And we need to speak up against that. This country has a majority youth population than an older population. These youth are going to be the future of the country tomorrow. The police need to start acknowledging the importance of youth voices in national discourse, and to use the force of the service to suppress those rights. We found it very unconstitutional and worrying.
If these concerns you're raising, if nothing is done about it, like you said, is a trajectory, it seems that is what the approach is. For instance, some have even raised concerns with regard to the number of police officers deployed to the courts when these protesters are being brought in. If this doesn't change, what are the consequences of it? Will it deter people from going out there to protest?
We need to be very careful. The constitutional provisions for protest is to allow for citizens to vent. It's like you're in a relationship. Things are going bad and you're not speaking up. If you don't have an outlet for venting, the day you explode, the relationship might be over. And we don't want to get to that place. We saw what happened in Kenya. So when we keep bottling the anger of the youth, who are the majority of our state, we will keep bottling that anger, and we don't allow them to exercise the mechanisms of protest and demonstrations to vent. We are building our own. We are building a future we will not be happy with.
You had there an official with CDD Ghana, Dr. Michael Augusto Sakagbo. He's a senior programs officer, human rights and social inclusion at CDD Ghana. Let's remain with issues relating to the aftermath of the protests and the arrests the arrest of some of the protesters by the police. Amnesty International has also added its voice and is making some demands. Well, Amnesty International Ghana is demanding compensation for all protesters who were unlawfully arrested during the Stop Galamsey Now protest and Reoccupy Jilobi House protest last weekend. Now, during a press engagement, Country Director for Amnesty International Ghana, Genevieve Patenting, bemoaned the poor handling of protesters by the Ghana Police Service, especially the lack of access to food, water, hygiene products, legal counsel, and medical assessment for detained protesters, which is against their fundamental human rights.
We need to change the narrative on the word protest. You see, when security forces hear this word, they tend to relate it to aggression and public disorder, which is an assumption, by the way, not a fact. We also need to review the Public Order Act 1994-491. NRCD Law 68 dealt with demonstrations, and at first, persons or groups needed a permit to demonstrate. This law was repealed after the Public Order Act came into action. There are clear issues in this act, and it gives security forces, specifically the police, too much power over potential demonstrations. The act needs to be amended to give a reasonable timeline that the police can apply to court to restrain persons intending to demonstrate. Detained protesters need to be granted basic access to proper food, water, and hygiene products, access to legal counsel and medical assessment and treatment. Our main requests are that we would want a list of all detained protesters and where they are stationed, so we can be granted access to them so they receive the necessary care and basic human rights.
You heard the country director for Amnesty International, Genevieve Pattington. Let's quickly go over the telephone line and speak to Obed King-Aglo. He attended that press briefing by Amnesty International. Obed, so Amnesty International is specifically asking for those who were just passers-by and bystanders to be compensated.
Exactly so, Dedei. Apart from that demand, Amnesty International is asking the Ghana Police Service to also grant access to all those who have been arrested to legal counsel, medical assessment, and also proper food, water, and hygiene products. Beyond that demand, they are also calling for a review of the Public Order Act, which basically gives the police an upper hand against potential demonstrators. As you may be aware, before a protest is organized, protesters must write the Ghana Police Service to inform them. According to the country director for Amnesty International, she believes that act is a bit imbalanced in terms of power, because sometimes the police delay in responding to protesters, and so it brings some kind of power imbalance. And so they are beyond this immediate call of asking for a compensation for those who were unlawfully arrested and those who were arrested and have not been given legal access and food. They are asking that the Public Order Act be reviewed, and they are planning to do that by petitioning Parliament. So basically, that's what Amnesty International has been saying.
All right. Thank you very much, Obed King-Aglo, bringing us up to speed with what Amnesty International has been saying. Still on issues relating to the aftermath of the protest and the arrests effected by the police, the National Youth Wing of the governing New Patriotic Party is demanding the prosecution of the protesters arrested during the Stop Galamsey Now demonstration. In a statement released by the Youth Wing, they described the protesters as miscreants and hooligans and called for them to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. They argue that failure to prosecute the protesters will encourage further lawlessness, and they also called on Ghanaians to stand with the police in ensuring justice is served. I'm joined in the studio now by Nanama Anobimpong Aqua with some reactions on social media, especially to this particular position taken by the Youth Wing. What are people saying to that?
Exactly. So when we move straight over to Facebook, we have Nana, who says they should stay in power forever because when the tables turn, we will all be here. We have Ishak, who says very soon the tide will turn. Then Jonathan says when they leave power, we shall see the way they talk. Oscar says the Youth Wing should also ask Baumia to arrest the dollar and bring down the cost of fuel. We also have Moses. Look at what the perpetrators of Galamsey are saying. Oh, NPP. Harry asks, what of those who vandalized a court and beat a judge? We have Efo Edem who says those who looked on to let our water bodies be destroyed through Galamsey too much face the full rigors of the law too. Enemies of the Fourth Republic. When we go over to Instagram, Chelsea says the destruction MPP caused Ghana is more heartbreaking. We have Good as God, who asks, what about those who have taken the law into their own hands, destroying water, and until now no one is caught and persecuted? And then we have Rakiaba, who says simply, bam. So that is what people had to say regarding the statement the NPP Youth Wing put out about the Stop Galamsey Now protest. Now, back over to you.
Thank you very much, Anama Akwa, bringing us the details with regard to the reactions on social media. Still on this particular issue, we'll be heading to the courts very soon because Oliver Mause, Baka, Vomawo, Felicity Nelson, and 11 more protesters were arraigned in respect of the Democracy Hub demonstration will know their fate today at the Circuit Court in Accra, as a Circuit Court in Accra, is expected to determine their respective applications for bail. There is more in the following report.
After a marathon court sitting, His Honor, Mr. Kwabena Obri Yebua, has adjourned the case to September 26. The reason being that prosecution will have to respond to the bail submissions moved. Due to time factor, the case has been adjourned for prosecution to also respond. But clearly, all the accused persons who were present in court pleaded not guilty to all 6 counts. On Thursday, the court will hear prosecution, and after assessing all the submissions, the court will make a determination as to whether or not Oliver Baka Vomawo, who was absent, and the other 12, including Felicity Nelson, should be granted bail or not. Meanwhile, counsel for one of the accused persons has been explaining the circumstances leading to the adjournment.
I represented 2 of the accused persons, and 1 is at the police hospital. So we requested from the court for an unconditional release of the accused person as he needs medical attention. And also, one of the accused person I represented is someone who is not fit to stand trial because of his condition.
Yeah, you heard there the report by our legal affairs correspondent Mutala Inusa. Let's go over the telephone line and engage him now. He is live at the courts. Mutala, at the moment, what is happening at the court?
Well, Dedei, at this particular point in time, I've just seen 2 police officers just walked into the court building. But apart from that, if you come here, the place is very quiet. Normal court processes, normal court activities are ongoing here. So I've also seen some few people who have come here in relation to this number. I can count as many as 1, 2, 3 people who have gathered here. Apart from that, you don't see the numbers. And the reason is also clear, because the court has fixed 1:30 for the hearing or for the case to be called for prosecution or state attorneys to respond to the respective bail applications advanced by all the accused persons, after which the court will have the onus to make a determination as to whether or not to grant bail or not to grant bail. So coming here, if you come to the premises of the court, the atmosphere, the environment is very calm.
All right, so the case will be called around 1 p.m., you say?
At 1:30, that is when His Honor, Mr. Kwabena Obri Yebua has fixed for the calling of this very case.
Thank you very much. Mutala Inusa is our legal affairs correspondent. Away from issues relating to Democracy Hub and the aftermath and the various reactions that have come in, the minority in Parliament has accused the Akufo-Addo-led government of compelling Ghana Gas Limited into signing an $800 million contract without Parliament's approval. Now, while addressing the media, ranking member on the Energy Committee of Parliament, John Jinapo, emphatically mentioned that the government is coercing the CEO of Ghana Gas Limited to sign the contract as they foresee their loss in the upcoming elections.
The minority once again has become aware of attempts by the Flagstaff House to compel the chief executive of the Ghana Gas Company Limited to sign a contract for gas processing at a whopping cost of more than $800 million. The initial tender had to do with a company called Phoenix. Surprisingly and strangely, that company has metamorphosized into an SPV, ostensibly to avoid parliamentary scrutiny. But more importantly, as we speak, the government of Ghana and Ghana Gas have not secured a firm commitment on the supply of raw gas for processing by this entity that they want to sign a contract with.
Mr. Jinapo also alleged that the Ghana Grid Company Limited, Gridco, has been cautioned not to reveal to customers of ECG and the general public the true state of the energy crisis. He says the sector is on the verge of collapse.
Because of such dubious contracts, as we speak today, there is load shedding ongoing. Gridco has been cautioned not to inform customers. Yesterday, there was a deficit of more than 500 megawatts. Today, they are going to shed load, and customers in Ghana will be affected. Talo Ghana has not been paid even $1 for the past 9 months for gas supply to Ghana Gas, and Talo is threatening to curtail supply of gas. The IPPs have just dispatched a letter to the Minister of Finance intending to halt supply of power for debt and liabilities hovering around $1.2 billion. It is sad that the energy sector is collapsing. The PURC recently confirmed that ECG is on the verge of bankruptcy. ECG alone incurred a debt of 10 billion cedis in their latest financial statement.
You had the ranking member on the Energy Committee of Parliament, John Jinapo. He's also the Member of Parliament for Yape Kusogo. This is still the Star Midday News on Star 103.5 FM, still on issues relating to power and distribution, among others. We can talk about the resignation of the Managing Director of ECG, Dubik Mahama, while the Institute for Energy Security has described the resignation of ECG boss Samuel Dubik Mahama as unsurprising. Mr. Mahama tendered his resignation letter to the board yesterday, citing personal reasons. However, the executive director of IES, Nanamwesi VII, says they had been expecting his dismissal or resignation for some time now due to the abysmal performance of the power distributor. He spoke to me on the Morning Star.
Of course, you cannot be assured of power supply. And not just power supply, reliable power supply. We are going to be seeing power cuts in numerous areas across the country. We are also going to probably see low voltages or brownouts because of the poor management of the little power left for us to manage as a country. Sometimes we have only 500 megawatts to distribute, but the push from government to Gridco and ECG causes a strain on the power system to the extent that some other bulk areas will trip in power supply. So we've seen this time and time again. We must expect, if it gets prolonged, we must expect widespread blackouts, brownouts, and fresh minds and capable hands. And so it's something that we did expect. And we've made a call on that already.
So you say that it does not come as a surprise. It's something you expected. And this is a non-performing managing director, you say?
Exactly what we are saying. Over the last 1 year, we've been seeing revenue collection of the ECG worsening, and we've seen the ECG underperforming to the detriment of the sector. Today, ECG's performance threatens both economic and energy supply security. We believe that the ECG has become a fiscal burden on the Ghanaian economy. The energy sector is something close to $2.5 billion. What is owed the IPPs today is in excess of $1.2 billion. We owe WAPCO, we owe VRA, we owe Gridco, we owe GMPC, we owe Ghana Gas, all in the name of ECG's non-performance. And so it is not something that we were expecting that it must continue, expected revenue. No, not at all. So we did expect that the managing director, together with the board of directors, must give way to fresh minds and fresh hands.
You had the executive director of the Institute of Energy Security, Nanamwesi the seventh, speaking to the issue of Dubik Mahama's resignation. He says they're not surprised. Earlier, you equally heard him talk about the need for power consumers to brace themselves for intermittent power supply due to the mismanagement at ECG. Let's move on and talk about some labor agitations now, because relatives and ambulance drivers who thronged the mortuary at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital today to pick the remains of their loved ones were left stranded as the Mortuary Workers Association of Ghana begin their indefinite strike effective today, Thursday, September 26, to demand improved conditions of service. Now, concerns of the union include inadequate provision of personal protective equipment, PPE, which the members of the union say has exposed them to diseases and other dangers. Additionally, salary arrears of members dating back to 2020 remain unpaid. Let's go over the telephone line and speak to Evelyn Araba Edu, who is at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital morgue, to give us an update with regard to what is happening. Araba, what more can you tell us at the moment? What is happening?
Now, Dedei, it is a sorry sight when you come to the Kolebu mortuary, as dozens of relatives who have their relatives at the morgue being turned away. And just because the strike has begun, and the moment you get to the entrance of the mortuary, you will see that the main gate is underlocked with a red banner hanging there indicating that indeed the strike has actually begun. And it is not only affecting relatives, it is also affecting drivers of the ambulances that are parked there, as all of them are also not able to work because the patients are not able to come for their relatives for them to even patronize them. As I was there, I saw a dozen of them who were turned away. There's a particular relative whom she said their funeral arrangements for their relative has been concluded already, and they were to receive her body on Friday, which is tomorrow, and being that, which means that today, which is Thursday, they are supposed to come and make all the paperwork and then make all payments so that they can get the body of their relative for the funeral to commence. And as it is now, they are unsure of what is going to happen. And if indeed they are not able to get their relative, it means they have to reschedule the funeral, with all the expenses being done. There are other relatives who also had to, the moment they heard of the impending strike, had to immediately convey the body of their relative to a private mortuary to avoid any inconvenience. And then also, with some of the relatives, they are also saying that as it is now, they don't know what to do, and it is only a matter of government listening to the plight of the mortuary workers so that they can return to work, for them to be able to at least have their relatives at the scheduled date nowadays.
Right.
And we also try to speak with leadership of the mortuary workers, but they don't want to say anything at the moment nowadays.
Thank you very much, Evelyn Arabaidu, on the ground monitoring the situation with regard to the protest. The strike by the Mortuary Workers Association. Let's bring you the very latest in the world of sports, and Jones Saji is here. Good afternoon to you, Jones. What's in sports?
Right, so former Black Stars captain Stephen Tornado Appiah has added his voice to the call for local players to be included in the national team set up, the Black Stars. The former Juventus man who captained the national team at the 2010 World Cup was speaking at Parliament's Select Committee sitting on youth and sports, and has called for local players to be given the needed confidence to play for the Black Stars. He also bemoaned the player exodus in the league and tagged it as shameful.
Chance and confidence to play for the national team. So in our time, even there are certain players that looks as if they are key players in the team. We were not key players. We have players like William Thero and the rest who were pushing us. So we have to make sure that we are not going to allow them to take our positions. It was Sheila Alias who was playing for Kotoko. He came in and he stamped the position. Our players now running to go to Tanzania. It's a shame. They should rather come here. We have our players now going to Sudan. When we played against Niger, the number 7 who was the best player on the pitch, who played for Niger, is a Ghanaian.
The former captain also touched on players' disrespect and disregard for national team coaches, where he believes coaches need to stand their ground and be firm in decision making.
Honorable Chair, yes, I think at times sad things happen, but I won't blame the players. I will rather blame the coaches, because at the end of the day, you are the boss. So you can decide not to play Ronaldo, he can't say anything. He will get upset, but at the end of the day, if a coach decide, I'm not playing you, you can't do anything. So when players you think that players think that they are beyond you, the coach, you have to take certain drastic decisions. Yes, I was then a player, today I'm a coach, so it's two different things. So I'm not a player anymore that you can compare yourself that you are better than me. I'm a coach. So you have to respect my decisions.
That'll be all for sports. My name is Jones Aji.
Thank you very much, Jones, with the very latest in the world of sport. And on that note, we end today's edition of the Star Midday News. And that'll be it for today's edition of the Star Midday News. For more news, do log on to starfm.com.gh. My name is Dedei. Thank you very much for your company. Have a good afternoon.